So we're going to start ourselves off with multiplying and dividing decimals by first looking at what happens when we multiply and divide decimals by powers of 10. Now, if I had this 19.42 times 10, I'm not very sure what to do with that, so I'm going to break out and replace values. 19.42, write that down. Oh, this 1 in the tens place, that's just 1 times 10 to the first. Look at that. 1 smaller. And then we're just going to add on this 9 units, and that 9 in the units place is just 9 times 10 to the 0, since anything raised to the 0th power is 1. And 9 times 1 is that 9 in the units place. And we're just going to add on these 4/10. Now, it might take you a little moment to figure out what times the power of 10 equals 4/10, but I'm just going to tell you. 4 times 10 to the minus 1. Can't forget about our negative exponents. Then we're just going to add on our 200ths here. 200ths, that's just 2 times 10 to the minus 2. And now, using this equation for 19.42, let's take a look. 19.42 times 10. Well, basically what we're doing here is just multiplying each of our terms by 10. So our 1 times 10 to the first becomes 1 times 10 to the second, and on 9 times, just add 1. 10 to the first, and this 4 turns into the units place. 4 times 10 to the 0th power. And now same thing with the 2 times 10 to the minus 2 power. Add on 2 and the 10 to the minus 2 becomes 10 to the minus 1. And now all I have to do is write this as a decimal. Well, 10 squared is 100. 100. 9 to the 10 raised to the first power, that's just 9 times 10. 9 in the tens place, 4 in the units place, decimal point, 2 for our tenths place. So we get 194.2. But look what we did here. The difference between two of the same digits, 1942, in the same order, 1942. Look, but all we did here was just move our decimal points over by 1. Just move it over. And this is what happens when we multiply by powers of 10. We just slide our decimal points, whatever spaces, to the right. So if I were to erase this decimal point, put it here, what's my answer? 194.2. That's what happens when we multiply a number by a power of 10. So now, we're going to just walk you through the process of moving our decimal points over one more time, just so that you're familiar with it. So 1.234 times 100, it's multiplied by 100, not 10. Just another way to express it. So again, we're just going to break out our place values. It might be pretty similar, we just swap our decimal point around, but just break it out anyway. So our 1 in our units place, just 1 times 10 to the 0th power. Then that's 2 times 10 to the negative 1 power plus 3 times 10 to the minus 2 power plus our final 4 times 10 to the negative 3 power. Okay, So, again, this is pretty familiar to you. I hope so. I also may say you're not paying attention to our multiplying by 10 at all, but I don't want to say that. Anyways, so multiply by 100, I want to be careful. 100 is 10 squared, so change that to 10 squared. So now what we know, instead of adding 1, like we did here to our exponent, we're gonna have to add 2 to our exponent. So this becomes to 10 squared, not 10 to the first power. And this becomes 2 times 10 to the first power instead of 10 to the 0th power. And then this is 3 times 10 to the 0th power instead of minus 1 power. And then minus 1 power. And then again, we just read off our place values. 1 times 10 squared, also 100. And then 20. The 3 at the end, put our decimal point, can't forget about that. And then look how cool this is. If I were to take my decimal point, I'm gonna move it over 2 times. I'm gonna move it over 2 times. And look at that, that's my answer. But why do I move it over 2 times? Well, like we did here, I'm gonna change it to an exponent squared. So what we're doing here is we're multiplying by 10 2 times. 100 is 10 squared, so we're multiplying by 10 2 times. And each time we multiply by 10, we move the decimal point one place over. So 2 times we go over. And I want you to say, and then for our conclusion, I don't want to say, oh, for 10 we move 1 space, 100 move 2 spaces, 1,000 move 3 spaces. I want to say that. So how much we move over by the decimal point? I want you to see that if a number, like a power of 10, if it's a number computed for you, I want you to change that to a power of 10. And then just look at the exponent. 10 cubed, we're multiplying by 10 3 times. So then to move the decimal point over 3 times. For example, this over 3, I just move it over one more step to get 1,234. That's our answer with the 0.0 at the end. So now, in our multiplication, let's try division. It's gonna be pretty easy, but I don't feel like erasing all this and writing it over again. So I'm just gonna put a couple edits to my picture here I have already. But kids, don't do this at home, okay? Trained professional, okay? Don't do this, okay? I'm a trained professional. Okay, a kid professional. Anyways, I was trained before to do this, okay? I was trying to do edits. So, change this to divide by 10. Change this to divide by 10 squared. Okay, this is my first part of my train process. Okay, so erase our arrow. I'm not gonna erase the work. It'll be an example. So if I'm gonna divide by 10 here, then instead of adding 1 and becoming 10 squared, I'm gonna subtract 1 to get 10 to the 0th power. I'm just gonna change all our exponents to be different too. Since now, I'm gonna have 10 to the minus 1 instead of 10 to the 1 first. And here we're gonna have 0, here we're gonna have minus 2, and then minus 3, instead of going up. And now we just read off our place values again. So 1 stole our, put the decimal point in, can't forget that. Okay, 1.9, and then the next term, hundredths and then thousandths. And look what we did here. We just slid it to the left. Huh, cool. So So when we divide by a power of 10, we're sliding our decimal to the left of whatever decimal our number is. So let's try to see if it works here too. So divide by 10 squared. I'm going to subtract 2. Get 10 to the negative 2 already here, straight ahead. And then 10 to the minus 3, minus 4, and a minus 5. Wow, we're getting pretty small back here. And I'll just read off replace values again. It's simple. But 10 to the minus 2. That's 2 hundredths. But what about the tenths and ones? I mean, we can't just forget about these zeros. Instead, they'll think it's in the tenths place or the ones place. I got to put these zeros in our decimal point, very important. So we got our hundredths. So, got our hundredths, right? No tenths and no ones. Since we're dividing by 10 squared, we're subtracting. We forgot about the ones and the tenths. So now we have 2 times, just 2, 3, 4. And look at this. I'm just moving our decimal points around. Just move it 2 spaces. But what happens on this point? Well, we just added a 0. And added a 0 and a point. So this is all we're teaching today. All we're teaching is multiplying and dividing by powers of 10. Now let's start our entire conclusion. First, multiplying by powers of 10. We just change the power of 10 to a power of 10 with an exponent, and then we just look at the exponent to find out how many spaces we moved the decimal point. Now, if the exponent is 1,000,000, how many spaces do we move it to the right? Yeah, 1,000,000. Good. But what about division? Well, division, let's move it to the right. And as we saw here, if it goes farther than this digit, we're just going to add a whole bunch of zeros. Okay, so now we know how to divide and multiply by powers of 10. Let's try multiplying and dividing when both this.